Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Okay, got my package today. Guess what's inside? Well, it's time to see how Harvest Right matches up to everybody else when it comes to oxygen absorbers and Mylar bags. Which couldn't have happened at a better time. So here's the bags, here's their oxygen absorbers. I put this order in on April 2nd. Today is the 22nd. So it took 20 days for Harvest Right to fill the order. And I don't really blame them. They are a bunch of busy little bees up there. But it couldn't happen at a better time because I ran out of Mylar bags a long time ago. So I've been using Ziploc bags to put my food into. And depending on how dry my food is going to be, I might have to just throw some of this food back into the freeze dryer on the extra dry cycle and just dry it out a little bit more. But I had food I needed to do, so I went ahead and did it. So we're going to take a look at Harvest Right and how good their product is. And like I've said in the past, especially when it comes to oxygen absorbers, this is only good for the here and now. I don't know where Harvest Right gets their oxygen absorbers, but apparently wherever they get them from, they make them just for Harvest Right, because out of all the oxygen absorbers I've seen, they're the only ones that have their name on the oxygen absorbers. Everyone else just says, do not eat. So we're going to run it through the paces and see how they do. So first we're going to do, we're going to open up one of these little packs and take out one Harvest Right oxygen absorber. And get my Gorilla duct tape on the back of this. As you've seen me do this before, and then this goes in the water. This jar came out to be 140 milliliters, so 21% is marked right there. So we'll see how many times we can dump this out and see how much oxygen it will absorb. And 21% is 197 milliliters. In this episode of Buyer Beware, we're going to be taking a look at the Harvest Right product. This is the packaging that the oxygen absorbers come in, and they show there's 50 absorbers, and they're stating that they are 300 cc's. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at these and determine what size the oxygen absorbers really are. So the first thing we want to do, we want to just check our scale out. So it's zeroed there. We got the 1 gram weight, and that is registering at 1 gram. We have the 100 gram weight. That should come up to be 101. Let's throw a 50 gram weight upon here. So it looks like the scale is accurate. So we're going to go ahead and take one of the packages out. And we're going to remove just one oxygen absorber out of this package. And that is coming up at 7 grams. And just from the initial fill, it feels like flour inside. So So that's a good indication. I don't feel any grit right offhand. So first indication, I can see the black iron powder and the white secondary ingredients, and this is coming up at 6 grams for the contents. So we're going to spread this around. Now that's interesting, my scissors must be magnetized because I'm also picking up some of the powder there. So we got our little magnets here, so we're going to go around and pick up the iron powder. So it looks like what remains is 2 grams of secondary ingredients. And I want to do this one more time because I do see some white powder still in here, so we're going to do the math a second time. So I just want to get the iron powder without any of the secondary ingredients. Okay, so we're back to 0. Still back to 0. So it looks like we're picking up 4 grams of iron. And therefore the package needs to be 1 gram. And even the package is having a hard time picking anything up. So let's try this again. So the package is not even 1 gram. It's not even registering. So if I take my packet identification here and we try to see who the manufacturer is, just to let you know, I did contact Harvest Right and I asked them for a SDS, which used to be called an MSDS. And the person I contacted didn't know what an SDS was and they did not have one. Now, just for OSHA standards and for safety standards, anyone that manufactures or distributes a chemical or a mixture of chemicals is required to furnish an SDS sheet, which is a safety data sheet which has all the information required. If I were to get, if I was to ingest this or get this into my eyes or whatever the case would be, someone in the medical field may need to have a copy of the SDS sheet so they know what this is. Well, we know this is iron powder, but would someone in the medical field know what this is, and would this be harmful? I know that this chemical right here is mostly salts and some vermiculite and some other chemicals, but someone who's going to treat me would need to know that. So if Harvest Right is listening, you really need to get a copy of the SDS sheet from the manufacturer or distributor of your oxygen absorbers. This is the MSDS, or really should be called an SDS sheet, for the oxygen absorbers that are sold by Harvest Right. And I can see why Harvest Right probably had a difficult time getting it, because it looks like it's primarily in Mandarin Chinese. And the cover sheet, this is page 1, is from a company called Shenzhen BCTC testing company, which probably did the analysis for the oxygen absorber. There's 2 pages we're interested in, is under section 1 of the SDS, and this actually shows the manufacturer of the oxygen absorber, and I don't even want to pronounce this because it is unpronounceable by me, but these are made in China and are imported by the United States. The important part that I'm looking at on the SDS is going to be section 3, which actually has the chemical composition of the oxygen absorbers. And you can see here that the primary ingredient is ferrous powder, which ferrous is basically iron, in which is 70%. I also found it interesting, if you drop down a ways, there's another line for iron powder. So they're referring it to ferrous powder and iron powder. And so it's about 70-75%. So the contents of the oxygen absorber are powdered iron, salt, you have some moisture in there, activated carbon, and sodium chloride, which is basically table salt. So this will give you an idea of what's in the oxygen absorber, which is very common with all other manufacturers. Anyway, going back to this, I have a lot of the different manufacturers and distributors of oxygen absorbers, and this one is not coming up on my sheet, so this must be from a company that I'm not aware of. So this is 2 3/4 by almost 2 inches. 2 3/4 by 2 inches is not on my list here, so I have to do some research to find out who manufactures the Harvest Right oxygen absorber, and the SDS would have that information on that. So I'm going to continue to get the SDS from Harvest Right and see if they'll supply that to me. Next, we're going to take a look at the Mylar bags. And this is how the Mylar bags come from Harvest Right. And I have to say one thing, I think Harvest Right has the best packaging to protect the Mylar bags in transit. So we're going to go ahead and open this up. And I also have to admit, the Harvest Right bags are probably the prettiest. Okay, so this is the Harvest Right bag, and I'm pretty sure that they say on here, they're only saying 10 by 14 inch. They're not giving me a mil thickness, so I might have to go to their website. But I believe they advertise a 7 mil bag. So they do show their bags are 7 mil. So back to the test. So we're going to take the bag here. And this pains me doing this, cutting up a perfectly good bag. Now, technically speaking, this may or may not be a Mylar bag, because Mylar is it's a trademark from the DuPont Corporation for polyester film. So if this is truly a Mylar bag, the Mylar would have to be made by DuPont. If this material is not made from DuPont, then this is just a polyester bag. But anyway, we're getting a little bit too technical here. So we're going to break out the test kit. And I went ahead and calibrated this off camera. So we're going to do the front facing test first. I took a total of 70 readings. The low was 6.7, the high was 9.5, and the average is 7.4. So the Mylar bags are 7 mil bags. In fact, they're a little bit better than a 7 mil bag technically. They're 7.4. It has been 14 hours on our water test for the Harvest Right oxygen absorber, and we're way down here. Now, time really is not an indication of quality when it comes to oxygen absorbers. So this is actually taken a little bit longer than some of my past tests, and that could actually be a good thing, because the one thing you don't want to be able to have an oxygen absorber be exposed to the atmosphere and have it be spent within an hour or two. It all depends on what kind of secondary ingredients that are put in with the iron powder on how quickly it will absorb the oxygen, or how quickly it will oxidize the moisture. So our goal right here for the first test is at 197 cc's, which is 21% of the oxygen in this jar, and we're way down here, probably a little bit over 100 cc's. And it's been 14 hours, and we're just going to be patient and continue this test. Okay, we're about 36 hours in, and it's still increasing but taking its time. Okay, this is our water test. It has been 48 hours, and it's still going, but very, very slowly. Okay, it's 3 days, and this is the second dump. So we'll keep on doing this until it no longer takes up any more water. We're at 96 hours. That is 4 days, and this thing is still going strong. I'm going to give this probably another day and see if it will rise any further up the mark. It's been 5 days. That is 120 hours, and we're right up to this line right there. Now, I don't know if it's going to continue, so I'm going to mark that line right here, and I'm going to give that another day and see what happens. It's been 6 days, and it really hasn't got much above that mark I put, but we're going to go ahead and dump this. Exchange the air, and we're just going to give it another day and see what happens. 8 days, 17 hours, and that's where the mark is. If it doesn't move from that location by this evening at 5 o'clock, I'm going to throw in the towel and call it. Okay, it's been 8 days since I started the water tests on the Harvest Right oxygen absorber, and I'm ready to throw in the towel. That has not moved much, so we're going to go ahead and calculate the last 2 dumps and see how much water was picked up. This is 734 cc's. This is the same amount of oxygen that we removed from the Harvest Right oxygen absorber during the water test. It's a lot of oxygen, and to give you an idea of how much oxygen this is, this single absorber, and I have to reinstate that this was just one single test, but the oxygen absorber that we tested removed 734 cc's, which is equivalent of removing the oxygen out of a total of 3,495 cubic centimeters of atmosphere. So with this one oxygen absorber, I could remove the air from almost 4 1-quart bottles. That kind of puts everything in perspective on how much oxygen one absorber removed. What are my conclusions and takeaways? This little 300 cc oxygen absorber not only removed the 300 cc's of oxygen it was rated for, but removed a total of 734 cc's of total oxygen. So that's pretty good. So what do I say about Harvest Right? Well, the bags are good. They're labeled. I think Harvest Right probably has one of the best Mylar bags. The oxygen absorbers not only meet the specifications of working to remove 300 cc's, but go far beyond that. Now, just remember, this was just one single test, so results can vary. If Harvest Right changes their supplier, all bets are off. But I would continue buying product from Harvest Right. They got a good product. They probably need to work on their shipping a little bit and try to cut down that lead time. But I hope you enjoyed the time you spent with me during this little project. I hope you learned something. And as always, please subscribe, and I'll send you another video on another supplier of Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. Thank you.